Welcome in to a very special edition of the Take the North podcast. I am Dan Wiederer, joined as always, as used to be, by a very special guest here. We've got a guy that you might recognize, voice, face, all of it. David Haugh, what are you doing here?
This is episode 300? This is really episode 300? That seems like a lot. And I was there for a lot. I missed a lot this past season, and Mark Grody now has taken over. Yeah, I think I had to come back to realize and recount just how bad my preseason predictions were.
Well, welcome back. As you know, every year we do our preseason predictions, and then we come back right around the Super Bowl and revisit those predictions. In most years, we've been pretty spot on. This year, not so much. And we'll get into that in a couple of minutes. But I did want to make a note because I did look this up today. October 10th was the last time that you appeared on the wonderful Take the North podcast. At that point, the Bears were 3-2. I was getting on a plane to go to London, where they improved to 4-2. And then you left us to chronicle a 10-game losing streak. What the hell's up with that?
So actually, they've only won one game since I left. So Mark Grody taking over led to a 10-game losing streak. I'll let the audience infer whatever that means.
Yeah.
But that means Mark Grody might be carrying some bad karma. I don't know. But it was a long, long, long season.
Well, we may have to bring you back in if they get off to the bad start in 2025. We may have to bring you in as a slump buster to just come in and get them back on track. Before we get into our lengthy recap of our season predictions and what went right and what didn't, it's Super Bowl week here. That brings the typical Chicago flair down in the site of the Super Bowl this year. It seems like there's the annual visit with Matt Nagy that several members of the Chicago beat has done, as well as some Saquon Barkley news there. What did you make of the comments that Pat Finley unearthed that Saquon Barkley said? I believe I was pretty darn close to becoming a Chicago Bear last spring.
Yeah, I think it mimics some of the stuff we saw on the Hard Knocks episode when Joe Shane was negotiating with Saquon Barkley, the Giants, and trying to keep him in New York. And the Bears were one of the teams that Shane, I think it was, mentioned was driving up the price. And so you remember that process. I remember being kind of a cheerleader a little bit for the Saquon Barkley idea in free agency, thinking that would be, number one, great for us and great for any fan, but two, kind of unrealistic and maybe a reach because the Bears at that point had so many other issues, and getting a running back like that might have been a bit of a luxury item. Still, I love the idea. The Bears were not able to pull it off. And I think Saquon Barkley telling Pat Finley that in New Orleans on Monday night was just a reminder. They were pretty close, and it wasn't ridiculous to consider. You also remember, the sentimental tug was strong for him to go back to Philadelphia or go to Philadelphia. But there also were factors in Chicago that mattered to him. He idolized Walter Payton. He talked to Jarrett Payton about wearing number 26, and to the point where Jarrett had to tell him that that was Matt Suey's number, and that then Saquon was like, well, I'll wear something in the 30s because it'll honor your father. So, when you get to that point, you consider the possibilities. Just too bad for the Bears that didn't happen. Saquon Barkley is one of the guys you look at in the Super Bowl on Sunday, and you think what could have been. Jalen Carter will be another. Certainly Patrick Mahomes is the ultimate what might have been player for Chicago fans.
On Thursday night at the NFL Honor Show in New Orleans, will they give out a ribbon to the teams that came pretty close to signing stars in free agency?
I don't know if they'll do that, but Chicago is used to planning the virtual parade.
Yeah.
Players that came close.
Oh, almost had him.
Yeah, almost had him.
And he ultimately chose to play for a team that had a better offensive line and a better chance of winning the Super Bowl.
The Bears, the White Sox, the Bulls, and LeBron, the White Sox and Bryce Harper, the Cubs and geez, the Cubs and Shohei. There's a lot of other. Everybody comes in second in Chicago, so we are truly the second city in that way.
Last thing before we get into the prediction segment, do you think that Matt Nagy relishes media night at the Super Bowl, watching 7 to 8 members of the Chicago media come ask him for his thoughts? He gets there every year, so I think he relishes the idea that every single year since he left here, he's been playing for very meaningful things in his football life. But I imagine that that routine may have gotten a little tired for Matt by this point.
You know him better than I do, but what I know of him, I think he's really affable. He probably knows that's coming. But it probably also represents a really disappointing period in his life where the goals were high and the ambition lofty, and it started out so well. So I think that probably, if he's like a lot of us, you look at certain points and periods and think, well, I had higher expectations, and being reminded of them probably is no treat. But I'll say this for him: he's been the consummate pro. I think he's got a really good fit and a good job, maybe a better situation for his quality of life in Kansas City. Easy to say because he's not, but he wants to be a head coach. He wants to be successful. Will he be a head coach again? I'm not sure. He might be the heir apparent to Andy Reid, but Andy Reid might not retire until 2035.
Yeah, and Matt got some job offers or job interviews in this hiring cycle, and ultimately he's going to be back in Kansas City as that wheel turns and goes for a three-peat this Sunday. We're going to get into our predictions here right now, and Adam Studzinski, our stud producer, has pulled up all the audio from September when we were really feeling good about where we were headed. It's always good to listen to it. I joked when we first did this the first year. I named this after former North Carolina guard Melvin Scott, the Honk Honk Awards, because he was famous for saying, "I don't like to toot my own horn, but honk honk." That was a pretty big shot I made there at the end of the first half. It was one of my favorite quotes of all time. So there is going to be some honking here, but there's also going to be some of the Price is Right loser horn to be played at times. Because there was some bad stuff that was there, and I'm going to own some of mine. Unfortunately, I'm going to ask you guys to own a couple of yours as well. But we're going to start out with our predictions for the Bears record, because we were all very bullish on where the Bears season could go in 2024, and we were all very wrong. And none of us took into account that David Haugh was going to leave the podcast and then trigger that 10-game losing streak. Had we known that, maybe our record predictions would have been a little bit different. But you
actually,
guys...
you know what? To clear that up real quick, David left. Then the Bears beat the Jags in London, and then the 10-game losing streak happened. So technically, when Grody wasn't on the podcast, there was a win. There was a little limbo period there where we didn't have a second host. Yeah, there was a bridge there where we kind of had some fill-ins, and I was in there too, and they won in London, and then they had the 10-game losing streak. And so we actually had to do some research to make sure that when they beat the Packers, that was actually Grody's first ever victory podcast.
There's a lot of Grody stink on the season, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And he's not around to defend himself, so we can continue to throw that at him until he gets back on the job here. So we went in and we were picking the Bears record, and you two guys were on the same page. Studs, you had them finishing 9-8 and getting a wild card berth, being the last wild card team in the NFC. Well, that was wrong. David Haugh, you said they were going to be 9-8. You said they were going to be relevant with the arrow up. That was wrong. They were irrelevant and the arrow was down. And if you want to know who was the most wrong of anybody, this guy right here, me. Studs, play the tape.
One of the common themes in my Twitter mentions is that, Wiederer, it's so weird to hear you talking positively about the Bears. Well, mark down September 5th, 4:13 p.m. as the moment that I changed my record prediction for the 2024 Chicago Bears. The Bears are a 9-7 football team when this year ends. Yes, you heard that right, 9-7. It means that they are going to Green Bay for Week 18 with a season on the line game against the Packers at Lambeau Field. You want theater? You've got theater. The Bears with a chance to get into the playoffs with a win on the road against Green Bay at Lambeau Field. Guess what, David? Mr. Positive tells you they get it done.
Wow.
With a late game-winning drive from their rookie quarterback to go to 10-7 and make the playoffs. You guys want a little bit of meat in these predictions. You got meat in these predictions right out of the gates. 10-7, Bears in the playoffs.
I was dead on. They had a late game-winning drive from Caleb Williams in the season finale. Nothing wrong in that prediction.
Well, nothing but accuracy. That's something else. That's something else. But we all were kind of fooled.
And that was me, right? Like, this is Mr. Pump the Brakes here. And going down that path, that hurt to listen to that again, to realize how off I was.
You know what was really funny, David, is the week before the Packers game, or not the week before, the podcast we did leading up to the Packers game. I don't know if you heard this, but Dan said that the exact opposite was going to happen, that the Bears were going to lose, and it was basically going to be a close game, and they were going to fail again. And I'm like, oh, so you backed off your prediction in multiple ways, and then almost that exact game that he described happened. It just, the record wasn't there. So that was funny. I'm the only one that picked them to win that game, by the way. Or did Grody? Did Grody? Grote might have.
I
Doesn't
think
matter.
Grote might have also. Yeah, but
That doesn't matter.
we can't credit him. Our next category was the Bears MVP for 2024, and this is a little bit of redemption for me. But Adam, you went with DJ Moore. Not a bad pick. He had a decent year. It was a little bit less than what a lot of us were expecting, but there's nothing wrong with that prediction. David, you went with Caleb Williams, slightly over Montez Sweat. Probably not. He probably didn't quite get there. And I ended up hitting the only Pro Bowl selection for the Bears. So this is a honk moment for me. Let's play that tape for a minute.
Mark that down here as well. I thought that the safe choice in this category was Montez Sweat. Not provocative, but safe. You talk about a guy that has an opportunity to impact the defense. But I'm going in a different direction because I do think the defense is going to be the engine of this football team this year. And I think the one guy that has impressed me more than any other over the last 7 weeks leading up to the regular season is the guy in the 30. Used to wear the 33 jersey, now wears the number 1 jersey. Jalen Johnson is playing at a level where he is not only going to establish himself as a repeat Pro Bowl selection, but he's going to get that all-pro consideration that he thinks he deserves. I just love the way that this guy has responded to getting paid and getting accolades in 2023 and using those as fuel to get hungrier. I don't know how certain guys do that. Jalen Johnson has done it, and I think you're going to see a special player within a really good defense this year.
Good call. That's a good call.
Mostly, I did say the defense was going to be the engine of the team. That didn't quite pan out, and they ended up firing the coordinator, who was also the head coach, the play caller, all those things.
Engine, it just kind of the transmission stopped and he was shot and everything else.
But Jalen Johnson, obviously back in the Pro Bowl, was there over the weekend at the Pro Bowl games in Orlando. Good to see him continuing that upward slide. So now we're going to shift over to the breakout player. I went with Kyler Gordon. David, you had a nice choice here with DeAndre Swift, and we're gonna listen to that audio here in a second because I do think that you can back this one up. Studs, give us the David Haugh September outlook on breakout player.
The breakout player to me, I don't know if it's much of a breakout, but he's been the most overlooked important Bear to me of the preseason. And DeAndre Swift, who will be playing his first game on Sunday for the Bears, is going to be a guy that quietly, as you referred to DJ Moore, quietly having 1,300 yards. I think quietly we're going to see him be very productive. He's going to give them the running game that they need offensively, and he's going to be great out of the backfield. We saw a glimpse of that in preseason. But for me, the breakout player, somebody who's never done it before, I know he's a proven guy for the most part. But this is his third team, though. He's going to be the breakout player for 2024.
I'm good with that one because 1,345 total yards and 6 touchdowns. That's a pretty good season for DeAndre Swift. It was a little bit under the radar with the way the Bears offense struggled, but I think you can take it doesn't have to be a full speed victory lap, but you can take a little jog and give a little wave.
Would you agree, though? People are really down on DeAndre Swift. I think overall people found him underwhelming. I was a little surprised how many people thought so quickly he was a bad fit. And I understand he got off to a slow start, ended up with a career high in carries. I wonder what his role is going to be with Ben Johnson. But this year he was serviceable, solid, not spectacular.
Yeah, and maybe not the best fit with what they asked him to do last year behind a line that struggled to get stability. But again, look, like the 3.8 yards per carry rush average is the thing that's going to leave people a little bit underwhelmed. But again, 1,300 plus yards and 6 touchdowns, I think that's pretty good for a starting back. He's got to take that up a notch. We'll see what his role looks like under Ben Johnson. Studs, you went out on a limb on this one, and I hate to do this to you, but you went to the defensive line for your breakout player. Let's give it a listen, and then we'll let you defend yourself.
I'm going to go a little bit more outside the box. I'm going to go defense. And if you're a listener to the Bernstein and Holmes show on The Score, you know that I am the number one fan of Gervon Dexter Sr. I think he's gonna have a breakout season, and the Bears are gonna find that they found their 3 technique. I think the last half of the season last year, he was the best rookie defensive lineman in the league. And if he can continue that and continue to keep his pad level low, which is still his number one concern as far as keeping him back, then he is a monster of a human. And so I hope they move him around a little bit too, and get him on the edge a little bit, and maybe on the edge opposite of Montez Sweat every now and then. I think that'd be pretty cool. But anyway, I think that Gervon Dexter is going to have a really, really good season, and the Bears are going to be like, yeah, we found our guy in the interior of that line. So here's the thing on that. I don't think Gervon Dexter had a bad season. he didn't do as well as I was hoping he would. So like if you're gonna say here's the opposite of like, I don't think I was like dead wrong. I wasn't 100% right. All right. He had 5 sacks this year. All right, that's decent for an interior lineman, more than Jalen Carter had, by the way. And we won't take any more context from that. So
identical seasons, Jalen Carter and Javon Dexter.
Identical season. Yeah, no, yeah. Look, I understand why you bring this up. I don't think I was all that wrong. I really don't. Like, he didn't have the kind of year that I thought he would, but he didn't have a bad season. I thought he got better this year.
I'd like to give you the floor to be to defend yourself. And David, anything that you'd like to say to tack on to this?
If you just compared him to Jalen Carter, you ought to get off the screen right now.
I said I'm not providing any more context. I'm not providing any more context.
Okay. Gonna zap one of these boxes if you make another ridiculous comparison.
Of course Jalen Carter's a better player. Catch the sarcasm here. Jalen Carter's a much better player. I realize that. But Javon Dexter didn't have a bad season. He didn't have the breakout season I was hoping he would.
Now we'll have to see how he fits under Dennis Allen and what they want to do with him in the new look Chicago Bears defense in 2025. The next category that we went into was the most disappointing player, which is always a tough one to pick. But the two of you guys did it right on. I picked Keenan Allen in September, feeling like his heel that was bothering him down the stretch of the preseason.
That was a good call.
A little worried about where that would head. I think Keenan Allen's production ended up being pretty good, given what he was dealing with early in the year. Well, you guys went with the same player on the back end of the defense. And David, I know you probably haven't heard this in about 4 months, but this is your chance to honk here. Studs, give him his due.
I think Jaquan Brisker could be a candidate for this category only because availability is the most important ability, and I fear that he's not going to be available. I don't know that we saw enough of him in preseason. I think we're still waiting for him to make that step that I expect Kyler Gordon to make. We've seen glimpses of that. So Jaquan Brisker, not because I don't love the way he plays when he's on the field, I really do, but I think that they're going to need safety depth because I'm not sure he's going to be around, and therefore he's going to disappoint many people, including me.
I hate being right because he just does not have much. He's in such a critical phase and point of his career that, he had a tough season with the concussion at the wrong time. And now I don't know what the future holds for him. I guess he's going to try to play again, but I don't know anybody can count on him moving forward.
I would let the record reflect here that October 10th, again, was your last episode on Take the North. It was the day that Javon Dexter popped up with the concussion that he suffered against the Carolina Panthers. So Jaquan Brisker has not played a football game since you last appeared on this podcast. If you were looking to attribute some of these Bears' downfall again to David Haugh's exit from the Take the North podcast, Jaquan Brisker may have a bone to pick with you the next time he sees you.
It was abrupt. Yeah, maybe that. I don't know. That's just coincidental. It's got to be, right? That was that long ago?
Yeah.
Tommy
crazy,
Tremble,
right? Missed the last 12 games of the year, right? And so that's when you're looking at that uphill, there's no question that was disappointing for the Bears, for Jaquan Brisker, for everyone involved. And you nailed that one. So that's a honk. There you go.
Honk.
You can semi-truck honk there. We're going to pivot here to Caleb Williams' stat line next here. And so we asked the three of us to do yards, touchdown passes, and rating. We don't have audio for this, but David, your projected stat line for Caleb Williams was 3,950 yards, 33 touchdown passes, and a 99.7.
Wow. I was
overshot it a little bit. Studs went with 3,515 passing yards, closest one to the actual passing yard total that Caleb Williams had. He went with 29 touchdown passes, and he couldn't even give us an exact rating, David. He said somewhere in the 87 to 90 range, which was right. Caleb finished with 87.8 there.
Pretty good.
So Studs kind of gave himself a ballpark. He gave himself some wiggle room. My prediction was 3,842 passing yards, 24 touchdowns. I was the closest in the passing yards category, and a 92.6 rating. Caleb finished with 3,541 passing yards, 20 touchdowns, 87.8 rating. So we all overshot it a little bit, but close enough to feel like we can keep our jobs as analysts.
Yeah,
I'm taking the victory lap on this one.
Yeah, Studs was close as anybody. He got the yardage pretty close to the passer rating. I think I was expecting a lot more, like a lot of people around the league, and that's why the expectations. I think they probably have come down a little bit in year two, but you add Ben Johnson and that into the equation, I wonder if by Labor Day, everybody's going to be expecting a lot more greatness from Caleb Williams, because we'll get a glimpse and, give us an inch and we'll take a mile.
All right, 2 more categories here. Oh, you have something else here, Studs? You can go ahead.
No, I just want to say, you guys, David in particular, made fun of me when I predicted that 3,515 stat line. I believe your exact quote was, "Are they going to be running the wishbone?" And I said, David, no Bears quarterback has ever thrown for more than 3,838 yards or whatever it is. And until it happens, I'm not predicting it.
What? They should have run the wishbone.
They probably would have been more effective, honestly.
Yeah. I apologize after the fact.
And my prediction was that Caleb Williams' final completion of the season to set up that game-winning playoff berth-clinching victory at Lambeau Field was going to be the one that also broke the Bears' single-season passing yardage mark. So, All right.
That pass did get him over 3,500 yards, I believe. Or no, wait, never mind. I'm looking at the wrong stat line. It got him over 3,530. So, it got him somewhere.
There you go. 2 more categories. The one that's the most important is who was going to take the North. And we were all in agreement here that there was going to be a repeat champion, that there was a team in Michigan that took the North in 2023 and wasn't going to give it back in 2024. And lo and behold, we were all right there. Studs, give us some audio just to back that one up.
Buckle in for this one, because I think that the take the North division champ is an easy pick. It's the Lions. I picked them last year, and there was some pushback. Oh, they're still the Lions. Well, they weren't. They were a different Lions group, and they got within a quarter and a half of playing for the Super Bowl. And so they're not only going to take the North, they're going to take the NFC.
Oh, well, they were the 1 seed, and they won 15 games, and they were positioned to go to take the NFC with home field advantage through the NFC playoffs, and ultimately laid an egg in the divisional round. And ultimately that sped our jobs up a little bit. In retrospect, it was probably a nice thing personally that the Lions lost as early as they did, because it allowed us to get the Bears coaching search behind us a little bit earlier.
You could say that the Washington Commanders had 2 victories this season that greatly impacted the future of the Chicago Bears. And without them, the first one, the Bears might not have the tailspin that they fell into. And without the second one, they might not have the head coach that they hired.
No question. All right, it's Super Bowl week, and we had to make our Super Bowl predictions before the season began. Unfortunately, we're going to leave this one to Studs to take the final victory lap on this. But, David, you went 49ers-Ravens. 49ers over Ravens in the Super Bowl. Obviously didn't work out for the guys out in the Bay, Kyle Shanahan. Ravens had a pretty good year. I thought they were poised to make a run here in the postseason, and ultimately ran into that Buffalo Bills squad there. But, any apologies to give for that one, David?
Well, I do think that I tend to pick the Ravens almost every year. I like John Harbaugh. I fall way too in love with the Kyle Shanahan offense. I should have expected Christian McCaffrey to play half the games. I am no longer a big believer in Mr. Irrelevant. He is now irrelevant to me again, and Brock Purdy. So there's a lot of things about the 49ers I used to believe in that I no longer can. So I will not pick them for the next decade.
That's a kamikaze leap off the 49ers bandwagon by David. He was at the front of the parade float, and now you just off.
I'm diving off. I feel like it's crossing the Golden Gate Bridge, and I'm just going to keep on diving and plummeting because I'm so far off that bandwagon. They can go on without me.
All right, they're going on without you. I went ahead and picked a Lions-Bills Super Bowl matchup with the Lions. With the Bills winning it, feel like I was kind of close. The Bills were really kind of knocking on that door. The Lions were the 1 seed in the NFC. It just didn't come to be in the postseason.
Well, if the guy would have called forward progress, Josh Allen would have had the first down. They keep playing now.
You're right. And they'd still be alive. They'd still be alive to win it. Well, Studs also went with the 49ers out of the NFC. But he did the smart thing, even though we all resist the smart thing. And he did this. Go ahead.
Okay, guys, listen, we made the same mistake last year, and nobody put the Chiefs in the Super Bowl last year. And what they do, they won the Super Bowl again. I am never picking against Patrick Mahomes ever again. The Chiefs are going to be in the Super Bowl. You're the smart one. Yeah, the Chiefs are going to be in the Super Bowl, and I don't think that needs any more explanation than that. Then they have Patrick Mahomes, and no one else in the AFC does. Now, the NFC is a lot tougher, and I also came down to trying to decide between the 49ers and the Lions, because I should say I do think the Lions are going to win the NFC North again, just like you guys said. And again, as much as boring as it is, I think the 49ers are going to win. And if anything, because I just can't believe in Jared Goff for some reason. I can't pick him over the 49ers again. So I know it's kind of lame, but I'm going to go Chiefs 49ers, and the Chiefs are going to win again because it's Patrick Mahomes, and he's becoming the Michael Jordan of the NFL. And we can all look back on this in January or February when the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl ready to win it again, and we can be like, yeah, Adam Studs was right again.
Wow.
Damn right I was. That was the easiest pick. I couldn't believe I was the only one that put the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Like, guys, we gotta learn our lesson in one of these years. Like, Patrick Mahomes has been a starter for 7 seasons now. He's been in the Super Bowl for 5 of them. Am I right on that, or is he been? Or is it? They've been in 5 out of 6. 5 out of the last 6.
Yep.
So you should assume that they're going to be in this. The only time they lost was that fluke game that the Bengals won in Kansas City. And that was a weird game because the Chiefs just kind of fell apart in the second half. But anyway, you should assume the Chiefs are going to be in the Super Bowl. Like, at this point, until someone knocks them off, but I don't think it's going to happen, they're going to be in the Super Bowl, and it's just going to be up to whoever's in the NFC to try to win the game.
I vow never to make fun of your football takes again, Studs, until the next podcast that I'm on.
Thank you.
That was a vote of confidence in Patrick Mahomes, a vote of no confidence in Jared Goff by Studs that allows him to take the final tug on the semi-truck horn and honk it. You want to honk it?
I didn't know honk. The Jared Goff thing, I'm telling you, I said that all season, he's going to be their downfall. You can't count on that guy. He's not it. And now we'll see what happens after they gave him all that money and he cost them a playoff game and he doesn't have Ben Johnson anymore. We'll just see what happens.
And we'll see what happens to the Lions because they don't have 7 coaches anymore. And it is going to be difficult because they had a great staff and they have a great roster, but that staff got the most out of it. And you just wonder how they will move on. Ben Johnson was the first domino to fall on that staff, but they have a lot of people to replace.
David, before we let you get out of here, a couple more things for you. First of all, consider this an open invitation to come back next summer to do the prediction segment for 2025. You don't have to give us an answer today, but consider it because I think it's always fun to do these in September and then come back right around the Super Bowl and see what we had to say. So chew on that for a little while and figure out if you want to do that. Also, just curious because we haven't talked to you in a while on the show. As you reflect on the month of January for the Chicago Bears, their ability to go out in the coaching search and swing big and make contact and hit one where they wanted to hit it with hiring of Ben Johnson. What do you make of the significance and what it signifies for the Bears that they were able to get Ben Johnson?
I really think it signals a stunning transformation because the Bears are a team that stepped up and did exactly what the league and consensus thought they should do. This wasn't lucking into a first-round pick or number 1 overall pick. This was strategically going out and executing a coaching search in a way that made them the envy of the league. And they could defend the process as clunky as we thought it was at times, as expansive and exhaustive as we thought it was at times, or maybe overdoing it. They could defend it. And I think when you get the number 1 hottest coaching candidate out there and you pay him what they're paying Ben Johnson, you buy back, I suppose, in some ways, you buy back the hope and optimism that maybe you lost and squandered throughout the 10-game losing streak and the disaster that last season was. So here we are, beginning of February, heading into another offseason where there's always optimism in Chicago. But the Bears have started the offseason in as strong of a way as they possibly could. And Ben Johnson's put together a staff that's very impressive. And they have money in salary cap. Under the salary cap and free agency, you think they're going to continue this because I think Ben Johnson makes everybody in that building smarter. And we can debate Ryan Poles, and you guys can have a great time on the podcast talking about it, Dan, and on the radio and in the Tribune and all those things. But the fact is, I think with Ben Johnson sitting next to Ryan Poles, he's going to be a better general manager, regardless of the contractual alignment or whatever. And I think everybody's a little bit smarter. Ben Johnson can have the effect on the Bears that a lot of guys that you think the loftiest terms. Theo Epstein on the Cubs, it feels like that. Brad Stevens on the Celtics, it feels that way. Sean McVay on the Rams. I mean, he does have greatness within him. You see that capability. You see that potential. Now, that's a mouthful because he can also be the latest version of Matt Nagy. If he is, we're all going to be disappointed and frankly a little surprised. But I do think big picture-wise, the Bears have put their money where their mouths are. Kevin Warren has made the impact he promised, and Ben Johnson is on the verge of doing something that maybe not a lot of coaches have been able to do in Chicago, and that is kind of reverse the trend.
Well, it's interesting because I've told people in my orbit that Ben Johnson could be fantastic and still not be the answer. Like we saw Matt Nagy win the division and NFL Coach of the Year in his first season, and ultimately we learned later that he wasn't the answer. And so it's going to be really fascinating for the Bears to go on this journey to figure out whether they can string together success instead of just having one good year and then falling off the cliff like they like to do. And then I guess just with what you said about the alignment or the relationship with Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles, do you have the sense, as many do, that Ben has been essentially pushed into the driver's seat for a lot of these decisions, and that when you listen to his agent Rick Smith say his vision matters and his vision is sharp, that Ryan is now sort of sitting shotgun as Ben Johnson drives this car, this truck, whatever it is, wherever it's going?
I do get that sense, and I don't think it's anything that's going to be formalized or anything that's even going to be overt or you maybe even acknowledged, but I do think that there will be an understanding that when everybody's gathered in a meeting room, or maybe the two of them are together watching tape of, a potential 10th overall pick or what free agents they like or don't like, Ben Johnson is going to have a certain type of player, a certain type of coach that he wants and he will get. And because his opinion will matter most, we always look at the hierarchy. Typically, it's defined by his salary. And Ben Johnson's making $13 million. That's a lot of money, the seventh highest salary for any NFL head coach. You can't conceivably have a guy in the building making that salary as a head football coach of the Chicago Bears without him having the final say. If you need to determine it, ideally they'll be in lockstep. There won't be this kind of friction, but there's okay to have creative tension. And I think they will have some of that, and that's going to be healthy for them. So Ben Johnson definitely, I get the sense, is going to be the guy where the buck stops here, and he will be the guy where all responsibility will fall. And Ryan Poles has been, I don't want to say he's been demoted officially, but his power has been diminished.
It's going to be really interesting to watch that play out in the weeks and months ahead. I would keep you here all afternoon if I could. You've got bigger and better things to do with your life nowadays. So you're onward and upward. The invitation is always open for you to come back. And specifically when we get into the preseason, we're gonna really hound you on that one to get you back on for the prediction.
I'll come back before then. I miss doing this podcast. I've been fortunate. The Chicago Sports Network started. I have a role over there doing a couple shows, a big pro football show in the Chicago League. There just aren't enough hours in the day. Mully and Haugh in the mornings. It's on the score. It's a great fun to have those jobs, and I love doing this podcast. Grody's doing a terrific job filling in, and you always do as well. I will come back when I can and fill in whenever. And no, this has been a lot of fun.
Well, this has been a tremendously fun reunion. It's been good for our audience. You guys know what to do out there. Like, subscribe, tell your friends about the Take the North podcast, and let it continue to grow the way it's been growing for the last 3 years. That's David Haugh from 670 The Score and 15 other ventures that he is capable of handling. And I am Dan Wiederer for our stud producer, Adam Studzinski, who took the last laugh and threw the exclamation point on his predictions. Take care. Great talk. See you out there. This is Take the North.